Tzu Chi volunteers hand out blankets to some 1,000 Syrian refugee families in Turkey. We take a look at how Tzu Chi Medical University in Hualien, Taiwan inspired the establishment of other Tzu Chi schools. Welcome to DaAi Headlines. I'm Helen Liao. Thank you for joining us. As the Syrian civil war rages into its fourth year, thousands of Syrians continue to flee their country to seek shelter in neighboring countries such as Turkey. To help, Tzu Chi volunteers there organized 2 distributions and provided close to 8,000 Syrian refugee families with blankets prior to the onset of winter.
Istanbul, the largest city in Turkey, is always bustling with activity. However, amid the hustle and bustle, children can be spotted begging for money in the streets.
Where are you from? Syria.
Syria.
Syria?
Syria.
One day, I came across a child at a sightseeing area who wasn't wearing any shoes. He was begging for money alongside the road. I noticed that he was Syrian, and I thought maybe I could help him. We took a train to his home, and when we arrived, I saw that the entire area was occupied by Syrian refugees.
The ongoing civil war has forced Syrians to flee their homes into neighboring countries to escape the bloodshed. Despite being out of harm's way, one of the biggest problems confronting the Syrian refugees, however, is adequate shelter.
像这样子的地方啊，这里面都是水。
They live in such harsh conditions. Water seeps through the wall right by where the children sleep.
Seeing the harsh living conditions of the refugees, following the home visits, Tzu Chi volunteers here in Turkey decided to help.
Geçinebilmesi için bu zor dönemde herkesin kalbini ısıtabilmek için hazırlanmıştır.
وتحت المظلة السماوية وفوق أرض نعيش أسرة وعائلة كأن وحدة ونحن الآن في شهر تشرين ثاني وعلى أبواب فصل الشتاء بارد والمرة الأولى في تاريخ جمعية.
Despite their limited manpower, Tzu Chi volunteers still managed to execute the distribution successfully, giving out 3,738 blankets to 884 families. Even more praiseworthy was the fact that many Syrians took it upon themselves to bring help wherever they could, including 11-year-old Owis.
I'm very sad now because I leave Damascus and Syria and my friends in Syria.
90% of the students in Syria have given up on their education due to financial struggles. I know how much these children yearn for an education. I hope someone can help them find a way.
You're welcome.
Refugees express their heartfelt gratitude as they walk away with the aid supplies in their hands. Volunteers hope that the symbol of love from Tzu Chi volunteers worldwide will bring the warmth these refugees need to carry them through the winter.
In 2014, the Tzu Chi Foundation, in cooperation with the Taiwan Council of Agriculture, delivered 100 tons of rice to Jordan. Volunteers in Jordan recently began a distribution of that rice to the needy in and around Jordan's Mafraq province, with stops at an orphan and single-parent organization, a Catholic-run medical center, and the 10th city of Zaatari.
Following the arrival of 100 tons of rice from Taiwan, Tzu Chi volunteers in Jordan first deliver the rice to an organization for orphans and single parents in Mafraq province. It is a scene of love but also helplessness. Refugees from Syria also arrive in hopes of receiving some rice, but to maintain order during the distribution, volunteers have no choice but to keep the distribution centered on local Jordanians.
Good?
Very good.
Hannah, sister, you are good.
Volunteers next bring 100 bags of rice for this Catholic-run medical center, ensuring patients and those caring for them will have food to eat. That last leg of the trip is the tent city of Zatari, where volunteers face their biggest test yet. Despite the weather, everyone remains calm. Volunteers make balloon animals for the children, and adults wait in line for their bags of rice. The next weather front, however, has everyone running for cover. Hail and torrential rain do little to stop the volunteers and their 14-year-old mission in this desert nation.
In the Philippines, Tzu Chi's photography exhibition to mark the Tzu Chi Philippines chapter's 20th anniversary and to commemorate the first-year anniversary of Typhoon Hualien is still ongoing. Next, we go to the exhibition site to meet two local volunteers and see how the Buddhist NGO has helped them regain hope following the disaster.
Naging ulilang lubos na po ako. Pagpasok ko po na...
Now I am an orphan, but being a volunteer for the Tzu Chi Foundation helps me stay away from bad influences. Tzu Chi gave me the opportunity to feel the warmth of a family once again and a chance to meet new friends.
Dito po ako nakakilala ng bagong pamilya.
Meanwhile, at Tzu Chi's photography exhibition, local volunteer Angeli Balasanos explains to participants the story behind each picture. Balasanos also reunited with the Tzu Chi volunteer that gave her a warm hug a year ago.
I remember when I hugged her, I said, "Cheer up, hang in there." Our encounter inspired her to become a living bodhisattva.
The warmth Balasanos received from Tzu Chi will stay in her heart forever.
Sister Lily gave me this booklet. I will write my stories in here.
In the years to come, more inspiring stories of local volunteers will continue. In September of this year, the Jingsi Books and Cafe in Taiwan donated 100,000 sets of books to areas battered by Typhoon Hualien in the Philippines. In the same month, a delegation from the Tzu Chi Teachers Association in Malaysia arrived in Omak to share with local teachers how to incorporate Jingsi aphorisms into their curriculums. Recently, volunteers organized a Jingsi aphorism drawing contest to see how well these children have been able to apply these words of wisdom in their daily lives.
Teachers and students from 60 schools flocked to the Ormoc City Stadium as this is an event not to be missed.
As you can see behind me, this is no ordinary art contest. This is the Jinshi aphorism drawing competition organized by the Tzu Chi Philippines chapter at the Ormoc City Stadium.
These beautiful illustrations are the work of elementary and high school students of Ormoc City.
When you say bad things about the others, you are actually making yourself look bad.
With good intentions come blessing, with strong vows come strength.
Reading out their favorite Jingsi aphorisms, students express their own interpretations through colorful drawings. This picture, depicting all things harmonious in a global village, illustrates one young boy's inner wish.
Mother Earth for letting us be safe and the children's happy every day and loving their parents, for mother and father or grandmother.
Jingsi aphorism, all the thoughts that we use, then we really give examples to the students, especially how to love your family, then how to love your environment.
More than 300 entries were narrowed down to 100 in the semi-finals. From there, the panel of judges went on to select their favorites. In the end, however, not only were contestant winners recognized for their outstanding achievement, but all were awarded for their participation.
This is an exhibit of the students' artwork. The competition ran from the end of October till early November. It was first a class competition that later expanded to the entire school.
They found out that's very important, especially for the formation of the values in our students. They are even applying it now in their respective schools.
Small amounts of money patiently accumulated can do great deeds. At the event, local government officials, teachers and students also brought their 2 months' worth of savings to donate, thus putting their love into action.
Residents of Dreamland Village, located in the Philippines, Cavite Province, first learned of Tzu Chi in summer of 2007 following 2 devastating typhoons. Starting in 2008, Tzu Chi began carrying out its charity missions locally. Let's now take a look to see how these seeds of hope have brought a chance for residents to finally leave their poverty behind.
Dreamland Village. Here, over 400 residents live among the garbage as they simply have no place else to go.
40, 70, 80, 90.
With no tables or chairs at home, Jefferson does his homework on the ground while a discarded bottle replaces a compass.
It's okay, I'm used to it. I'm very lucky compared to others, as I have help from Tzu Chi, which means I can go to school.
18-year-old Jefferson is currently a student at Cavite State University and also a Tzu Chi scholarship recipient.
When I received my scholarship, I was filled with an indescribable happiness, especially when I received the food vouchers.
These 5-peso food vouchers are a part of Tzu Chi's scholarship package. Such help is key to helping students like Jefferson continue on the path of education.
Without the scholarship aid, he would probably just spend time goofing around with his friends and not concentrate on his schoolwork. Thanks to Tzu Chi scholarship, he now studies hard. I hope he can get good grades and one day repay those who've helped him.
Tzu Chi's scholarship aid helps the 3 children of this family go to school, and also carries the message that only through education can one leave poverty behind.
After graduation, the first thing I would like to do is to be a volunteer. This will give me a chance to give back to society. The second wish I have is to quickly find a job.
Jefferson's connection with Tzu Chi started back in 2007. That August, Typhoon Pabok and Wu-Tip brought massive rains and flooding to the area of Dreamland Village.
In the beginning, there was no system. The garbage came and they just dumped it out. The children here would grab what they could. A lot of the food was rancid. Seeing what they were eating, it made me cry a bit.
Volunteers next slowly put together a list of who was living in the village. Starting the following year, regular aid distributions, free clinics, recycling seminars, and continuing education classes were held to help residents find a better future. Such love was also repaid in kind.
During the months that we were holding our distribution, they would give us bottles filled with change. Despite their poverty, they were still willing to make a commitment to collect money on Tzu Chi's behalf. That was very moving to see.
Despite the poverty of Dreamland Village, great love is to be found here, as well as spiritual wealth.
Thank you.
Their existence here feels like a gutted candle. It is hard to see how a recovery could happen. But for us, it is simple. We see that education is the road to helping them leave their poverty behind.
Tzu Chi volunteers thus put into action a plan to help the village's children keep a clean and orderly appearance, and also donated school supplies and meal vouchers.
We are poor and depend on the sea for our livelihood. Tzu Chi's help for our children, including paying for school fees and living expenses, has been one of the best things that has happened here. Tzu Chi continues to offer assistance and in all those years has never given up on us.
Since 2007, Tzu Chi has been here in Dreamland Village, bringing hope and ensuring that the village one day really lives up to its name.
In its first incarnation, the Tzu Chi College of Technology in Hualien was simply a nursing vocational school, and the Hualien慈济 University and its affiliated divisions was just Tzu Chi Medical University. Built near the Hualien Tzu Chi Hospital, Master Zheng hoped higher education could help residents find jobs locally to eventually boost economic situation there. Next, we take you on a look back at how Tzu Chi schools were born.
Taiwan's Hualien County stands at over 4,600 square meters, the largest county in Taiwan, yet only 7% of the area is inhabitable. Early on, Taiwan's economic development was centered in the west. Thus, development in Hualien, which lay far to the east, was widely neglected. However, 25 years ago, Tzu Chi was already building schools in this remote region. Why?
Actually, it's all for medical purposes.
What does that mean? Let's start at the beginning to find out.
In 1989, when the school first opened, we had about 107 students and the blessings of over 20,000 people. This is the first building of the school. At the time, the other buildings were still under construction.
Though school was in session, the classrooms and dorms were still being built. Even finding teachers to come to the school was difficult.
The problem was, after the school was built, there wasn't anyone available to take on the position of principal. That's why I was the acting principal for a year. At the time, I was already in my 70s.
What was the reason for Tzu Chi to build a school a year after the hospital was completed?
After the hospital was built, there was a lack of medical personnel that wanted to come to the east to work. Because back then the environment and transportation was primitive, so the master thought if we had our own school, we could cultivate our own medical staff. Thus we set out to build a medical school and a nursing department.
Besides closing the medical gap between eastern and western Taiwan, there was also a need to provide a better educational environment.
Back in the 80s, karaoke was very popular, and inside indigenous villages, students' education was often affected by excess karaoke. At one Mother's Day event, we even promoted the concept for mothers to find a place for their children to safely study in.
Another factor for the rush to build a school was that the act of trafficking indigenous girls was still being widely practiced. The nursing school started by Mennonite Christian Hospital to combat this practice had closed down, and the future of these girls lay uncertain.
If we had a school here, then local residents wouldn't have to leave Hualien to get a higher education. After graduating, they can get a job locally. In that way, Hualien's economy could be improved. Isn't that killing two birds with one stone?
In the early 80s, there were 75 vocational high schools and 41 colleges and universities in Taiwan. But in Hualien, there was only Huashi College of Education and DaAi Institute of Technology as centers of higher education. Thus, in 1989, Jinzhong Business College and Tzu Chi Nursing Vocational School came to the rescue.
There have been some 8,000 students that have graduated from our school, and over 30% of them have gone on to help out in remote areas. In our hospital, over 40% of the staff were previously Tzu Chi University students.
We hope the students we educate will have good moral values, as these can influence an entire family. If more families are infused with good character, then society will be more harmonious.
In a blink of an eye, a quarter of a century has gone by, and students continue to graduate here in Hualien with their expertise and mission in tow, ready to do good deeds in all corners of the world.
Recently, in Fuding of Fujian, China, Tzu Chi volunteers gathered to give an OT factory a good cleaning, as it will soon be the new venue for local Tzu Chi volunteers. Mobilizing over 50 volunteers of all walks of life, everyone wholeheartedly came together to give the new home a thorough cleaning.
It's not quite yet the Lunar New Year's holiday, but inside this old tea factory, Fuding Tzu Chi volunteers of Fujian, China, have already rolled up their sleeves to do some cleaning. The The original property owner, who is also a Tzu Chi volunteer, transferred property ownership over to Tzu Chi after relocating his factory. Thus, over 50 volunteers mobilized to give their new home a makeover.
Another Tzu Chi volunteer asked her son to bring a few trackers to help us clear out the garbage and knock down a wall inside.
Unaffected by years of dust, volunteers work hard to clean up the place. Bricks are saved for later use. One volunteer even asked her husband to bring over his professional cleaning equipment.
I said to my husband how wonderful it would be if we had the help of his pressure washer. He then said, "Sure, I can bring it over in the afternoon." He was originally going to go out.
We had a lot of help, from recycling volunteers to medical volunteers. If they weren't here, we wouldn't have been able to complete the cleaning so quickly.
From morning till night, volunteers throw themselves into the cleaning so that this venue will be ready to hold Tzu Chi events in the future.
Niaoyu village at Penghu's Baisha Township is a renowned tourist destination due to its distinct basalt formation and pristine ocean. And thanks to Tzu Chi volunteers from Ma Gong, residents here have been recycling for 13 years already. However, one of the local recycling volunteers recently injured his back, so Tzu Chi volunteers quickly arrived to help sort the recyclables.
我姐，我们现在去哪里呀？哎呀，要去鸟语。
34 Tzu Chi volunteers set off from Ma Gong, Penghu for the scenic Niao Island, but they're not here for sightseeing. Shilong, a recycling volunteer on the island, recently twisted his back, and thus Tzu Chi volunteers are here to help out.
Look at the amount of the recyclables, but since there are so many of us, we sorted them quickly.
Since Tzu Chi first promoted conservation here in 2001, residents have come to endorse and support the charity's environmental ideals. To thank the residents for their support, Tzu Chi volunteers have come here to host a tea gathering.
I hope everyone can recycle for the sake of the planet.
Though the Niao Island is a renowned tourist destination, the residents' dedication to conservation is also worth learning for everyone who visits. Prior to the nation's Doctors' Day, Taipei Tzu Chi Hospital organized an event to celebrate the occasion. We'll leave you with these images. Thank you for tuning in. Goodbye.